All right, looks like we're good. Welcome back to another one of these things where we just kind of talk about whatever. Whatever. Wearing a little bit of a nicer red shirt today. Had an interview. So that's where that's coming from. Not even though I would like to continually dress to impress all of you. I think you don't mind as long as I'm just kind of chatting about stuff that you care about. That's probably what matters most. Unless you find Henleys very attractive and that's basically why you show up to videos. Then maybe I'll wear them more often. Who knows? Who knows? If you do think that, then by all means let me know. And I will start dressing a little snazzier for the audience. Anyway, hope you're having a wonderful Friday. Today is Friday, I hope. I'm thinking it's Friday. I had the day off today. Like I said, tomorrow's my birthday. I think tomorrow's my birthday. So I'm thinking today's Friday because tomorrow's my birthday. I took today off for my birthday. But yeah, not a ton going on today. Got to sleep in a little bit. Did a little grocery shopping for the weekend, so I don't have to worry about that tomorrow. Just all about chilling and volunteering. Doing a little bit of volunteering tomorrow. It'll be kind of nice. February was just like super duper cold, icy, snowy all around here, so didn't really get a chance to spend too much time outside. So actually getting out there and helping the environment for a little bit for a few hours seems like a nice way to spend a birthday, frankly. Oh, the ways that you think a good birthday is, or the things you think a good birthday is when you get older. It's like, yeah, I want to go out to bars with my friends and stuff. Actually, I never really felt that way. I've never been, never been a partier in that regard. I don't mind having friends over to play some games or something, but that's my kind of party. Just small group of people, hang out. I think it was my 30th birthday where I just invited like 10 of my closest friends to go to an arcade called the Galloping Ghost around here, which is super duper cool. If you are in just the general Midwest, if you're in Illinois in the southwestern suburbs, then definitely check out the Galloping Ghost. That's in Brookfield, Illinois. I think it's still the largest arcade collection in the United States. If not, I don't think it's the world, but they're growing. They're growing big time. They like pick up a new cabinet every Monday. They do like a reveal every Monday. It's pretty cool. But yeah, go follow them. The person who runs the place, Doc Mac's, really cool. It's a neat place. Sometimes it's a little stinky, but that's a testament to the people who like to go to arcades, I suppose. Not really about the arcade itself. Anywho, yeah, speaking of games, I think we talked about games for a bit here. Let's check that. I think I talked a little bit about games before, but it's been a while since I talked about a game. I talked a little about Overwatch. Robotics Notes like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, Heather and I were playing a game on our stream. Well, we always play games on our Twitch stream. Usually it's a stream on Mondays and Fridays. We might not tonight, just to kind of chill. Continue the train for the birthday chillin'. But we have just finished playing Ubisoft's Immortals Fenyx Rising, which advertised it's like trying to make an Ubisoft game blend with Breath of the Wild, and that concept got me very interested, and the marketing around it really got me into it. It's like, oh neat, like I just got finished playing Hades, all these characters are fresh in my mind. For those who don't know, it's like it's more of an open world adventure game where you're playing a character in a Greek mythology setting, and your character is shipwrecked on an island of the gods, basically, and you were trying to save them because Typhon, which I'm also playing Borderlands 3 right now, so I kept calling him Typhon de Leon throughout that, and Heather couldn't get the thing out of her brain there for a bit, has transformed four of the major gods into lesser forms of themselves by taking away their essences and locking them in effectively dungeons, which like sounds like a decent thing on paper. And that's kind of where that really ends. The characters, I think it's just Ubisoft's humor is a bit of an acquired taste. It like delivers on the same puns. Like each character is really just like very, well, all the gods really in Greek mythology are very, they're like intended to emphasize one aspect of humanity, and it's usually not a good thing. They just like do that, and like cool stories come of that. And your character is, even though the game doesn't tell you a lot about it, she's a storyteller. I guess it could be he or she. She canonically is she. Is a storyteller that like travels with other warriors and things. She's telling tales, and whenever she meets these gods and goddesses, she's like, "What are you talking about? Why are you like scared, Ares? You're the god of war. Sure, you killed like a ton of people. Like a lot of people died because of you, but you were super cool when you did it," is really like the whole thing for each of them. It's like, yeah, you were a really shitty person, but you gotta remember, you're not a person. You were a god, and that's okay. You were really cool when you were being a shitty person. And like, you're trying to get their essences back while like telling them this. It's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I might have been a real jerk, but I looked cool doing it. And you're just helping them all like get back to that state. Basically getting them that one thing that all of the stories are told around them. And then they just have all their powers back so you can do stuff. And yeah, like because of that, like, I don't want to compare it to Hades a lot, but Hades did the same type of thing, but didn't make it so that you're trying to save them and tell them they're good people. You're really just like sucking up to them so that they'll give you their powers. And that's not the case here. It's like just a genuine, I've told your stories a lot. I think you're a really cool person. Like genuinely, all of your flaws are okay because you made cool stories out of it. And like that's fine. And I think I had a good time with some of the stories. Honestly, the one that I had the most fun with was Hephaestus, which is just like he was deformed, and the game doesn't show that very well. He just looks like a very normal looking person, and he's just not as chiseled as everybody else there. And they like Zeus still keeps saying, "Oh, he's deformed. He looks really dumb and ugly, and he just looks like a person." Like, I don't know what they were trying to convey there, but like his entire arc was just like, my essence was my pain, and I don't have it anymore. And while I feel like I don't have much emotion, the thing I feel is contentness or joy for the first time. Like some of them, like he was one of the characters that was just like definitely better off without it, and you're trying to get it back because we need your power to defeat Typhon. And it's like, okay, fine. Like that was the only, like I shouldn't say the only, that was like the most consistently interesting section of the game, because you're actively finding out as you're going through that quest line that getting Hephaestus his essence back is effectively injecting him with all of the pain and suffering that he went through at the on the other end of the other gods' malice, basically. So it's just like, dang, you feel really bad about that one. I felt they did a good job with that one. If they had done that good of a job with Aphrodite and Ares, because Ares was just so annoying. It's just like, one, I didn't like his just the voice actor is doing a fantastic job. Like he does really good. It's just you don't expect to hear him talk that much. It's just a really raspy voice, and he's like a chicken for most of the time, and he's just doing chicken puns for days. And it's like, okay, we don't need to hear you say clucking all the time as a replacement for dropping F-bombs. We know what you're saying. Jeez. So it's like, this is a way to make it kid-friendly, though. More people can play this because he's just saying clucking. And that was basically the joke for that whole quest line. Like, It's a cowardly chicken. The God of War became a cowardly chicken. The best part about that whole arc was all the cutscenes that had a bear in it, because that bear was cool. It was like a friend of Ares while he was in chicken form. Aphrodite's okay. She turned into a tree. She's just looking to get her beauty back, and along with that, her jealousy, basically. And Athena, she was turned into a child, apparently with all of her wisdom still. The only thing she got back was not being a child. So I don't know what the point of her essence was, but I assumed it would be that she didn't have wisdom when she was a child, but she was acting like it the whole time, just pretending. And when she got that back, she got a lot more pretentious. But she was like that when in the kid form too. So it's just like, okay, so you were nitpicking as a kid, but now you're super nitpicking as an adult. Okay, cool. Neato. But yeah, it was just like a lot of that didn't really mesh too well. Like some of them hit really well. The Hephaestus stuff went really well. I really enjoyed that whole part of it. But the other three were just like, yeah, I guess that's okay. It wasn't anything really to phone home about the characters otherwise. And maybe that's just because I saw like all of the other three, Ares, Aphrodite, and Athena, they're all characters in Hades. So that might be a part of it, where I'm remembering how they were depicted there, but Hephaestus wasn't in Hades. So I'm just like, oh, this is the first time I've heard his story in a while. It's pretty compelling, and it's being told at a pace that makes sense here. I feel like it did the best job. It told the story in the most interesting way. Maybe because, yeah, I can't really think of it. Like, I don't think it's because of, like, it very well could be. Like, it could be just me and my human biases being like, all the characters were better in Hades, but Hephaestus wasn't in Hades, therefore he's okay in this game. Maybe that's where it is. I don't think so, but you can play the game and draw your own conclusions. Or games and draw your own conclusions. Like, mechanically, it played okay. Some of it was pretty clunky. Like, I think the first time that I had tweeted about it was basically like, come watch us play Ubisoft Presents Breath of the Wild with slightly clunkier controls. And that's kind of true. Like, a lot of the combat was pretty repetitive. And just some of the movement felt a little clunky. Like, it wasn't very nuanced movement, if that makes sense. Like, you press forward on a control stick and you feel like you jump forward. You always do this. When you're running, feels great. When you're trying to move just a little bit on a very small ledge, you almost always fall off. Air controls didn't feel that great, but you know what did? Flying. Or rather, gliding. That, like, I wish more of the game explored more of that gliding mechanic, or even had like areas where you could just straight up fly, because I think they did a really good job with the flight controls in that game. Like, the stamina feels like it lasts a decent amount of time. You get to control your speed very well. It's actually better for your stamina to go faster when you're gliding rather than the normal speed, which is different than Breath of the Wild. That was one of the things that was kind of weird for Breath of the Wild, is not for the flying, but when you're climbing and you do like a faster climb, you use more stamina going a shorter distance. But in this game, you use less stamina going a longer distance. So there's no penalty to like investing in that skill, because in this game it's a skill that you get being able to jump while climbing. That's kind of where that ends there. It feels like the game might have been Heather and I were talking about this, and we're like, it might be that like the game had that, like the first demo of it was just like, check out these sick flight controls, and there's like, yeah, that's really cool, now just build all this other stuff and forget about those flight controls. Like, that's it, leave them there. It's like, okay, I'll put a story and a bunch of repetitive combat, and this, honestly, the world looked great too. Like, I think it looked really nice. It was very bright and colorful, but at the same time, nothing really stood out. It's weird to say that. Like, all of the buildings stood out, but you go to the buildings as a part of the main storyline. Basically, every part of the main story stood out like a sore thumb, so you knew to go there. Like, you see these like giant Hydra heads sticking out of the side of a cliff, and you're like, gosh, I want to go over there. But after like playing through like a third of the game, you start building up this thing. It's like, well, that's actually really easy to point out. Chances are the game's going to have me go over there anyways, and it's true. So like all of the little things to like discover on your own are nowhere near as neat to look at or stand out nearly as much as the landmarks that you go to just as a part of exploring the main story. As a result, we ended up doing very little side story stuff, which is probably okay. There was like one that made us want to do it, and it was, I can't even remember what it was. It didn't even stick out that much. Like at the end of the game, I didn't really think to go back to any of them, and I can't remember it now. But it was basically just sort of a telling of the history of the island from another god, and I'm like, that seems kind of neat. It might have been one of the Titans, actually. I'm trying to remember. Can't remember. But that was like probably the neatest like side thing. But at the same time, we never went back to it because it's just like all of the really big, interesting landmarks in the world were a part of the main story path. There was one side quest that we skipped that it was actually not a side quest thing because the main story, once you get to the end, is like, oh, by the way, go back and finish that side quest because it's important. And it's like, okay, sure. But yeah, it's just like it like wasn't a bad game. Like if you want more things that are just kind of open world, experience some characters that are mildly interesting, one that is fairly darn interesting. It's just the rest of the characters think they're a doofus. Not even a doofus, just like lesser for some reason. The Hephaestus line was really cool. Some of the bickering between Prometheus and Zeus was pretty funny. Sometimes it just got pun after pun and honestly a little annoying and getting in the way of some of the things that you're trying to do. It almost kind of slows you down. Like you're trying to go kind of fast through something and you end up slowing down, not because you like want to, but because you feel like you might miss something that like Zeus and Prometheus are talking about. They're kind of narrating the whole thing. Like Fenyx's story is a story that Prometheus is telling Zeus, as a part of this. That's established at the very beginning of the game, so not really spoilers there. Everything here that I've mentioned has showed up in marketing material, so no real spoilers here. So you could definitely explore the game, and there's a lot to see, and you'll be able to kind of feel this for yourself without the things I'm saying feeling like they're like I'm telling you exactly what it is. Being careful about that. Probably should have mentioned at the beginning. Need to get better at that. Excuse me. What else was I gonna say? I thought there was something else that was coming to mind for the game. Yeah, I think that's really about it. Like, I can probably talk a little bit more about the combat, but at the same time, it was just like we were playing on an easy mode. There's like a level easier than that too, like called Story, I think. And even on easy, it's like the enemies weren't hard. They just had a ton of health, just a ton of it. And if that's like the only thing that they do to increase the difficulty is just make them spongier, so you could have done more. And each enemy has like 2 attacks, so it's just like knowing how to read that one thing, and that's it. And there's one enemy that's just annoying. They just hold. Using your light weapons doesn't do anything. They just bounce right off the shield. You use your big axe, and that staggers them for a little bit. They like fly backwards, but it only opens them up for like 1 or 2 hits from your sword after that, and then they put the shield back up. So honestly, like the combat is difficult out of pure annoyance and massive health pools, which is kind of a shame because this is also the group that made I almost said Animal Crossing, Assassin's Creed. Which that combat really stands out to me. Like it ended up being very much like they saw they were making a combat very similar to the Arkham games and really leaned into that for later Assassin's Creed games. But the Arkham combat's great. So like, why break that? Other than like, well, we already have a Greek mythology type thing, not Ubisoft, but like with Kratos and the Arkham style combat. And it's just like, but why get away from that? We already make other games where the combat feels really nice. Why not just keep doing that? Instead, it just felt like they were trying to make it more arcadey or cartoony to fit with the style a little more, but it's just like it was less engaging for it. Like they wanted the story to stand out and the combat to like take a back seat, but also have enough combat in it that it takes up enough time and pads out the length of the game. Especially at the end. I won't even get into the end. But it was just like so many things that are just like, I can see a path to where this game might have been like really, really good. Like scale down the island or make the side places as interesting as the major landmarks, the ones that are in the main story. Don't rely so much on puns for all of your characters. Like, have a really good story that makes the player feel engaged with the character. The only one I felt that with was Hephaestus, and that's subjective. So that's not something I can say. Other people might be like, oh, the Ares chicken thing and him getting his confidence back was a really big thing, and that felt really compelling. It didn't to me, but maybe it will with others. Making the combat more engaging. They've already made games where the combat was engaging. I don't know how this one missed the mark on that. And if the flight mechanics were more of a central theme to exploring the world, that might have made it a lot cooler. Those are probably like the 4 things I would have done. Revisit your main story beats. Either reduce the size of the open world so that there's more to do in that little space rather than a lot of space but there's a lot of empty stuff in between that's not that interesting, or make the smaller places seem more interesting. Other things. Combat that reflects other games that you've already made, Ubisoft, that are engaging and I already like lost track of like all the things that I wanted to say. I'm just tripping over my words. But even those bits there are just enough there. Oh yeah, and like understand where your I shouldn't say fun mechanics, where your engaging mechanics are, and invest in those. Let me see if I remember them this time. We'll go backwards. Investing in your engaging mechanics. Rose is making sound over there. I'm not even going to try anymore. I've said them here. That's okay. Anywho. Decent game. Like, has so much potential to be better, and just, like, felt like little design decisions sort of made it middling, where it could have been just so much more. It could have been something that stood up to Breath of the Wild, but instead it's likely just going to be remembered as something that could have been like that in a world that seemed like it got a lot of inspiration from that game, but in the end just couldn't live up to it. It does a few things really, really well. Again, not a terrible game. Pretty average. If you enjoy running around an open world and like Greek mythology and decent flight mechanics, then you'll probably like this. But yeah, it's not a stellar rating by any means. I was hoping for more, but that's kind of what you get. You go in there hoping for a ton, and then you're just like, oh well, because you hear somebody say like, it's like Ubisoft and Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, ooh, Breath of the Wild was amazing. I have such high expectations now, and then it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have set them that high. Like, I was never that impressed with an Assassin's Creed game after Assassin's Creed 2. Maybe a little bit with Black Flag. I thought that was pretty well done. But like most things coming out of Ubisoft after that were just sort of like, they're okay. I'll give them a shot, but yeah. Anyway, if that seems like something that you'd like, go ahead and give it a shot. I have no idea when to title this thing now. Feels like I was rambling for a bit. How much time we got? 24 minutes. Jeez. Okay. I got to learn to remember, like, even just like a week and a half ago, I was like, hey, I'm just trying getting these down to like 10 minutes, except for these review ones. I guess this was my exception. But looking back over here, I got like a 17-minute one, a 15-minute one. I just can't stop talking at 10 minutes. The heck. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful Friday and a fantastic weekend ahead of you. And we will catch you in the next one. See ya.